All right, everybody. Thank you for being patient and waiting for some people to join. I'm very excited to listen in this discussion about battle passes and the continued evolution and somewhat never-ending evolution of battle passes. And Talia is going to lead us off here, but I'm so excited and happy to have you guys on the panel. So thank you. And of course, ask questions in the chat and we will try to get to them. Uh, and if not, I will answer them directly. Today's discussion will be reviewing Battle Pass trends, examples from Brawl Stars, Coin Master, Huge Casino, and more. This references a bunch of different reports, four different reports that are linked in here, and Jennifer will drop them in. I know some of you won't have access to these, so I apologize for that. But if you have any specific questions, let me know. And without further ado, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Stash, for making this available to everybody. Stash is a one tap in game web checkout for iOS. One shout out, Henry Lowenfels, if everyone knows, just became the CEO of Stash, and Henry and I go way back, and he's a great guy. So I think if nothing else, they are amazing people over there, and I gotta imagine amazing. They're amazing to work with for us. So someone to check out if you are thinking about doing DTC or thinking about trying some new stuff. All right, and we actually just launched a monetization report on like literally 30 seconds ago or 5 minutes ago. So, all right, meet the panelists. Talia, I'm gonna hand it off here to you and play VJ.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm really excited in regards to the panelists that we have today. Battle passes are one of those topics that, I mean, it's changed so much over time in regards to growth. The way it has expanded in the different ways. So today we're diving into two specific areas within it. Number one, we're looking at the expansions and aspects within the game. And number two, we're looking at the monetization side. So with those two, I happen to get two amazing, perfect people to come in regards to the topics.
No
We
pressure.
have no pressure whatsoever. We have Ohad Weissman from Playtika, who is monetization team lead. Really excited to help us dig into the numbers, talk about the details behind it, and pick your brain a little bit in regards to what those numbers mean. Because I don't just say, okay, tell me the numbers. I say, let's discuss them and let's dig in and figure out the details. And then we also have Oscar Clark here from Arcanix. Did I pronounce that correctly, Oscar?
Arcanix is what I normally say,
Arcanic.
but yeah.
I've been. This is not our first time on a panel, also
It's
together. It's
definitely
like,
not. Yeah.
and I don't know how to pronounce your company name.
It's
And
an ongoing question we keep asking ourselves.
and I'm, Oscar is one of the old guard when we're talking about the
Very,
gaming
very old.
industry. 1986 was
No,
it?
no,
84, 84. No, no.
no. 84 was when I start when I was doing online gaming, but 98 was when I actually officially joined. I remember my first pitch in 87 though.
Okay. So 87 was the first pitch. But
Yeah.
in regards to the details and digging into how it works for the player and taking, the player, evangelicalist within the industry to understand how it works, how everything can be utilized for the company and for the player to balance that out. So I have the best of the best with me today. So, with that in mind, we can go into the next slide. And I'm going to actually go back to a discussion, a question that we had, I was just came up right before we started the recording. And that is, what is a battle pass? You asked this, Oscar, so I'm going to reach out to you two and, to try to pinpoint what it is we're talking about today. Ohad, to you, what is the definition of a battle pass? How are we framing this entire discussion today so we don't go out onto every single limb that is out there and every tangent to go?
Well, first of all, it's a true honor to be here in this panel, and thank you everyone for hosting me and for this super incredible discussion about battle passes. And it's a good question, first of all, to frame it. What is a battle pass? So, personally, I think that battle pass is one of the most unique mechanics that we have. It's involved so many times, and I think it's aligned with the core motivation of the player. But before we talking about the players, let's talk about the mechanic. Usually, we have so many bars to fill in a game, which show us our progression, where we are aiming to go to. This is part of our storytelling for the player, and it's very flexible and very clear to the player. The battle pass involving the basic bar that we always know, but it's split it into two. The first one, the players can achieve it just by the effort of the gameplay activity. Each mechanic has a different way to make it more unique. And during this discussion and this panel, we will dive into several mechanics, which is super interesting. And the most important one that we have additional one on top of the freemium gift that the player get by some kind of effort or energy is collecting. We have additional area that the player need to purchase it. Usually it's defined as the premium pass. So during the gameplay activity, players can obtain so many great rewards, and usually it's giving them, if the players want to purchase, of course, it's giving them the best value for money you can get and giving the ultimate gameplay experience. So in general, just to sum it up, it's about with two areas. One is a freemium, one is a premium. And this is the basic mechanic. And we have so many variations that we're going to discuss during this discussion.
So
I'll chuck
we've
it.
seen.
Oh, I was going to
Go
chuck
ahead.
in a couple of things on that. I think to build on that, I think the free and the paid, absolutely agree. That's a massively important characteristic. But there is one other characteristic I think is really critical, which makes a battle pass, in my language, distinct from the other models, distinct from a subscription, distinct from other things, and that is that the more you play, the more you get. I think that's the quintessential defining factor of what makes something a battle pass. But remember, there might be better language we could use the battle pass, but it just became so endemic. Now, Claire Marshall highlighted the piggy bank. Those of you who will remember back that far, the introduction of a piggy bank, so the idea of collecting more coins that you would then be able to cash in, and the longer you had the run, the longer you would get those extra elements. That is a fantastic simplified version of this very thing. And I think it was only somewhat later that premium versions of those piggy banks were introduced. In fact, actually, I think some of the early piggy banks, you could only claim the piggy bank by making a payment. And the idea was to make that payment as late as possible to get maximized value. So we carry on forever on that subject, but I think the key thing is the more you play, the more you get, whether you're a payer or a non-payer.
Well, sometimes yes, but on other times the reward will not grow as you're going
Yeah.
along. It just continues to be a set amount of rewards, set amount of points. There's lots of different ways of doing it,
But
and
I
there's
don't think that's the battle pass. I don't think that if the characteristic isn't tied into play, I personally wouldn't consider that from a design theory point of view. I wouldn't call that a battle pass.
I'm talking about that you have to play to progress along the way. You've got the
Yeah,
paid tier, you've got the free tier, and but instead of incrementally growing as you progress along, it is set.
oh, sorry, I
And
see what you're saying. Yes, the items don't have to become more. They can be a set path. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I misunderstood.
so there's also the other directions that this has been taken, for instance, like in Fortnite, when they tried to do the Battle Pass store. Do you remember that one, Oscar? What
Remind me. I'm sure I'll get
what
it.
what they did with their Battle Pass, instead of having a free tier and paid tier, they would offer it as almost a store. And some of the items were free, and some
Yeah,
of them you had to pay for along the way. And if you paid, you opened up that particular store and you got the elements, and then you moved on to the next level of store where you had to do it again.
absolutely. And that ranking of those kind of, so one of the really interesting ways of doing that was when you use seasonal currency or pass type currency, where you can only earn that currency through the seasonal event, and then you can unlock those stores. So there's so many different ways of unlocking that experience and
Exactly.
that's what makes it so interesting.
Exactly. So, as I said, my happy topic. The next slide that we're going into, this was from one of the previous reports that broke down the Brawl Stars Battle Pass and went into a
Yeah.
lot of details about that. But one of the key things why this one is pulled in here is because they specified it to a specific area within the game,
Yeah.
the PvP. And so by targeting that area, dragging it into that area, you're limiting it at the same time. So, is it brilliant to target the high monetization players who are pushing the PvP? Or is it turning, the skill-based play into a pay-to-prove arena? Ohad, what are your
Um,
thoughts?
my thoughts about it, it was, first of all, it's incredible because in monetization way, when we look at things, to have a commitment from the player for such a long time and such a different period than the usual. Usually we talk about daily, weekly, monthly, some time of a time frame that is very specific. And I think they brought some huge innovation into battle passes that really engage the player, bring them, and really taking care about something that is super important, which is the retention of the players. Because when players that are purchasing it, that they keep in ongoing because they're already obligated to something that they get in for free by the basic currency, which is really amazing. It's very something that is weird in the field of the gaming. I never saw it before. It's like a distinguished part in the market. And I think it's pretty odd, but because on my side, it's a casual gaming, it's pretty much they have a different motivation when my game specifically, it's the social casino. When we are talking about something that is more instantly, it's something that happened in a very certain time frame. But I think about it, and it's really weird, but it's really interesting to me to hear what Oscar think about it because innovative.
Oh, I've got so many thoughts. I mean, so I'm kind of both excited and also terrified by this approach. The reason I'm excited, well, the thing I'm excited by is that it is right and appropriate to target audiences with things that they care about. So subdividing a pro status item provides kind of vanity, provides scarcity, and provides an emphasis that's very relevant to an audience that's deeply engaged. But a pro esports focused group of players will typically be very skeptical when it comes to performance enhancing elements. And one of the biggest challenges we have is that actually what players want is something which is valuable to their gameplay as much as their cosmetics. And we are very scared of that as designers because that can go very badly wrong, especially with this premium pro audience. So I think that I haven't gone into sort of frightened detail of exactly how they're working it, but I think there's the esport players are going to want to show off, but do they want to show off to the extent, a greater extent than other players? And if there's not something that's performance affecting, what is the primary motivation? And if there is something that's performance affecting, could that not become a problem in the game? There are great techniques to deal with that, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. But that's my fundamental question that I would have with that approach. Some of the ways you can do that, for example, is having loadouts. So if you have a specialist loadout, and that specialist loadout provides you with a frame that then works. But you can only pick one of the specialist loadouts, but you can choose multiple of them. Then the choice of the loadout you choose, that premium extra special one, becomes a choice, becomes part of the strategy. And if it's well designed, there'll be like a scissors, paper, stone element to it. So there's no defining winning loadout. You're choosing a loadout that suits your style of play. So that's how you avoid the adding value to gameplay without you having this diluting of skill.
Um, so in regards to looking back at the 4-month pass that Ohad mentioned, if you go to the next step, Brett, the next page, um, you've got the 4 months. Here you're talking about daily and seasonal challenges. The next slide, we're actually going to be going into a 1-day pass. You've got a lot of different times and elements that are pulling in here. Now, we know when Brawl Stars first made the change to 2 weeks, we saw huge revenue increases that went along. They did a bunch of different things, but the first thing they did was the decrease to 2 weeks. And this seems to have started in the industry, all sorts of playing with the number of days that are going on. So, when we're talking about what Huge Casino did here, where it's offering 5 daily and 16 seasonal challenges, it's how do you balance out with the engagement there if you've got so many different things going on for the players? Or do you run into a problem with overwhelming players along the way? Or, is just the more you can give them, the more that it excites them? Ohad?
Yeah, I think in this case, I think that when we discussing about it, about different time frames, and a lot of them in one screen, it might be very confusing. But we need to discuss about something that is super critical. It's about ritual. Rituals give us certainty, something that provide a frame inside of the disruption. We have so many pop-ups and communications, and we want to get into the core game. But when we're talking about a very simplified way, this is the beauty about Battle Pass and any pass actually, that there is a very clear contract between you and the player. You know what you need to do, you know how you can progress, and there is a certain time frame that you need to achieve it. Players are super sophisticated. They know what is the value proposition. They know what they want. They know how to get it. And I do think that in the high level discussion, it might be confusing, but when a player educates into the different time frames, he can find himself in a variety of options. And the beauty about it, the players doesn't must purchase, in my opinion. He can obtain all the premium on the ways and enjoy from different time frames and engage for a long time. And I do actually like the option of variety because each player, if you are playing only once or twice a week, it can answer the daily missions and you are not obligated for all of the month. So I think the beauty of that you can find at different places for different kind of motivation and different kind of behavior and habits into the games. And I actually pretty like it. I don't think it's confusing.
I think that's right. I think it's very kind of clean if you are clearly communicating and segregating out. But we do run the risk of the tyranny of choice, where people don't have the capacity to understand and appreciate the difference when they first encounter it, and that can cause people to churn when they don't have enough kind of onboarding or ramping on to that process. I think that's a risk. The other risk, and again, I don't think that's what Huge are doing, but I think, in fact, you highlighted some of the ways they might be avoiding that. The not giving enough appreciation to the player's time and investment. And what I mean by that is every player has an intersection with the game that's different. And the patterns in which I use a particular game may be different from yours, but it's my choice to come and play the game. if you are withholding, or if I'm perceiving that you're withholding what I should naturally be able to get because you're making me do more than I want to, more than I have time to, then you're actually detracting from my utility in the game rather than adding to it. I think this is really the fundamental question. It's basic principle of economics. We're all about utility. What do players actually want and how do we satisfy them? They're not there to satisfy us.
One of the questions I would ask as a follow-up in this, Ohad, is, when you're talking about players will do what they want to do, but the core feature of a battle pass is that when you do something, it progresses you a little, and then you're running into the FOMO aspect, the fear of missing out. And here's where the overwhelming aspect could come in because, okay, yeah, you could just do that one. But you've made progress along another one. What is it, the aspect? What are your feelings about that in regards to the pressure?
I do agree with that, but this is, I think, one of the basic mechanics regarding Battle Pass to create this FOMO, and you already obtain, you have sense of ownership. It's already part of you. Just $1.99 is separate you between you and this amazing reward you already obtained into your user account, and it's what motivates the player. But I must say, data-wise, that most of our battle passes, and actually in House of Fun, we have at least 5 in different mechanics, different motivations. Most of the players make the purchase when they're completing it or reaching to a certain amount or to the latest milestones in the battle pass itself. Like the player has the accountability to do his math about what he want to purchase, and we do see that the effect of it when we're talking, for example, a week or a month. We will see that most of the conversion will happen when the player reach to the latest milestone. So I think players have their own judgment about it, and they know they are doing it in a very smart way. But the FOMO aspect and the effect of it is crucial for the battle passes to work. Like we cannot separate between both of them. We need the FOMO in order to motivate the players, and I think it's a crucial part of it.
I
Yeah, I
think
think
about
FOMO is. Oh, sorry, go for it.
go ahead.
No, I have a terrible habit when I I'm like Taylor. If there's a conversation to be had, I want to jump in there. So apologies as always. I probably have a little bit of lag going on. Anyway, I'm so glad you brought up FOMO. One of the things that people get very worried about FOMO, but fear of missing out does not have to be exploitative. Fear of missing out is a natural part of the process that's necessary for people to be able to make a decision to make a purchase. And that's not just me saying that. Back in 1960, R. Bauer did a paper on consumer behavior as risk taking, and the need for there to be a call to action, a fear of missing out on something, was a necessity for people to make a decision. That's why when you talk about sales processes in general outside of games, you talk about action, needing a reason to act. Well, of course we need that in a game, but we also need anticipation. In fact, the four cornerstones are anticipation, fear of missing out, social capital. So what do I think people will think of me for doing this? But the fourth one, the most important one for me, is abnegation. Now, what does abnegation mean? It means the ability for me to set aside my other needs. You don't control that as a designer. All you can do is create the conditions where there's enough anticipation, fear of missing out, and social capital value built into the design that I want to act. I then have the free will, as far as free will exists, so the philosophical discussion all the time, that I can then choose to act. Now, that is fundamentally critical to that. But that's why it's so important to think about these things from the perspective of the player value. Because, you're going to have value in terms of like the things that I need to be able to play at all or not. But then there's the more subtle things, like things that give me advantage or disadvantage. But then we've already talked about the risks of there being too much advantage or too much disadvantage. We've talked about the risk of there being too much work involved. So it is always going to be a fine balancing act with all of these things to get the design right. At the end of the day, we need to create reasons to care. And I think one of the things that often is missed from battle passes is, why would I come back next week to play the next one? That's the underlying question. And innovation is one thing. I'm all for innovation, but for me, we should be thinking more like soap operas. We should be thinking them as ongoing, long-term narrative conversations with our players that engage them and provide them with a longer-term loop. Got a bit
Uh,
of voice back on it.
I think you got Brett's ghost in there, in regards to the echo. It's talking about the, engaging the players and the value for it. This was that in the narrative that is unique to individual ones. This is something that a lot of the casual games do, where they're putting, unique elements. You've got the skins and the RPGs and that type of elements. But one of the things that House of Fun does that's interesting, and a lot of games do, is you've got the unique currencies that go into it as well. And having a completely separate aspect, it's not just a matter of points, it's a matter of the different, fuels that are pushing all of this forward, and utilizing that so that the minute you feel like you have some of it, you want to keep going because this is something that is a limited time. And
Yeah.
so when you're utilizing this, Ohad, how do you feel it brings this about and brings it to the next step, comparatively speaking, to using some other method?
Yeah,
Do you need?
I think, yeah, I was muted. Yeah, I'm here. So, in my point of view, and specifically about the crystal pass that I'm going to mention, I bought specifically, we had several battle passes, but I took specifically the crystal pass because I want to take a different duration. In general, before we dive into the crystal pass and how it's work and what make it unique in the battle pass area. I think there is three key elements that can change completely the usage of each battle pass. It's include inside the duration, the source of energy that you need to collect, and the value proposition. Change in one of these elements will create for you a completely different usage and a different aspect for the player. How you're going to obtain it, how it's going to work, and what's in it for the player actually. And the worst things that can happen that we are not going to balance between the player needs and the business needs. And something about the battle pass is it's make it much more subtle, and we all the time making to provide the best experience for the players. So let's dive in a little bit into the crystal pass and what make it distinguished, because it's completely different from any other pass that we have specifically in our game. So regarding the Crystal Pass itself, it's part of the Mission Hub. We just released it in September 1st, month ago, which is really exciting. And we made a huge change. In the past, the Crystal Pass player need to make missions by order. They need to complete one in order to get to the second one, and then to the third one, the fifth one, and so on. In the new innovation of the Mission Hub, we release a new thing that the player can progress in parallel, which means the player not obligated to do it by the specific order that we want. Player can choose anything he would like to do in any time regarding their own motivation, and it's tightly connected into our core game mechanism. First of all, the most unique thing about it, the primary currency the players get into the crystal pass, which is the coins. Coins is the base currency that we have in the game. It's the only battle pass in our game that delivers it, because it's really connected tightly into the core game, and this is why we're providing it. On top of it, because the player make a weekly effort, you need to come and play every day in order to progress. So we have exchange of resources. Put his effort into the gameplay activity, is connected, is coming every day in order to complete additional mission, additional one, until collecting all of the medals and complete all of the crystal pass. In return of the investment for the players. We provide them with the best value for money, which is available in the game, and this is what makes the player very feel like they earn it. Regarding the rewards, we need to talk about it because it's connected also to the value for money aspect, because we bring the highest amount, rarity, and quantity of items. And we need to remember that the player get it just in the freemium one, in the free part, but also in the premium part where they need to purchase is even higher. But we always reward the players and give them the sense of progression and rewarding him for his effort. I already spoke about it. It's do connected to the core game alignment. Players doesn't requested to do anything. We have in any game a lot of adventures and quests and a lot of mechanics that we are pushing the players in order to progress in the game. Players doesn't need to be connected or need to be involved in any feature. He just come to spin. We give him progression by the core game, which is the root cause it came for us. And it's really important to recognize our players and to know how to deliver the first thing they come into it. I already spoke. Yeah.
Guess the question I would ask off of that, though, is giving them this, based on what it is, what are you gaining out of it from a game development standpoint? What is the balance there in regards to how much you're pushing players forward? Some games have utilized where you must play every single day and they block you after a certain amount of time. That was done a couple of times by trying things out. What is the motivation that goes in to building out a battle pass from the game development side for the players?
I think one of the most crucial things that I mentioned, I'm going to repeat about it because I think it's crucial for the discussion. Many battle passes, not about Crystal Pass now, but many battle passes are dedicated to a specific currency in the game or to a specific place that you want to push the player. Usually you want to sync the player from the primary currency. You want them to be invested in the game as much as they can. And this is how we are economically can found a lot of battle passes in the game. When we are doing it in the core game alignment, when we are talking about the most basic game, the reason you come into the game, it's make it much more easier. The player also perceive it as something that is easy. This is why I came. I just doing what I do and I'm enjoying and getting free rewards on top of it. So I didn't make it much more easier because we want to create a ritual, something about the time frame, something about the certainty, something about the time limitations that give you a frame inside of all of the disruption, especially if we will take a second ago the reference from huge casino that they have so many passes in the way. So something in the battle pass that align with the core game and sitting on a ritual that repeat itself gives something that the player know what he's expecting, you know how we can give him a relief. And we also know to deliver the player all of the mission that he's like, because we want him to feel bonded. It's part of his home. We can find players finding any time during the day, and they progress on it because they really enjoy and get its satisfaction just by progress.
What's your thoughts, Oscar, in regards to the amount of time, the elements, the different, motivations for player drive?
Look, I mean, there's some stuff in here. I just said it's gold. I mean, for example, one of the things I really thought was interesting as you were talking through is the way that you're paying attention to the base level purchase methodology, the base motivations that already are inside the game experience, not being interfered with by the battle pass process, that making it complementary to that process, that's incredibly important and very easy to screw up. I mean, the idea of rituality is massively important. I think we underestimate just how important that sense of ritual is, but it's a bit like flow. Flow is always that tension between relaxation and frustration. We need that balancing act to get that right. And actually, we need that to be in motion. It's not just a simple static thing. I think the same thing happens with rituality and freshness. If there's not something to entice, there's not something to kind of stimulate, we're not coming back. But if it's too new, if it's too different, that itself can be a reason to churn. So I think all of these factors are incredibly important to a well-designed battle pass. I mean, obviously things like the use of bespoke currencies, one of the reasons why I think they're useful is because two reasons really. One, from a player point of view, is they provide a sense of value that's intrinsic to that experience. And I think that's really important. Yes, we can see a progress bar, and that's great, but it's not the same as having a specific currency. I happen to really like Battle Pass currency, but I like that to be the methodology you unlock your choice of things that you want from, I think, Tally, you mentioned it earlier, the shop for that season. And the reason I like that, and it goes to a point that was made earlier where somebody was asking, I think Siraj was asking about how much is complete in a battle pass. How much would you expect someone to complete a battle pass? Well, the nice thing is if you're using this currency value methodology, using specific currency, if you allow people to convert that to a premium currency, then they can boost that to buy the things that they missed out on if they really want them. And so I have a personal preference where items that were available for free through playing the missions in a season can be purchased in the month after, but then they're gone and they never come back. So you're providing that scarcity. I think that's really powerful. And if you add to that, one of the options being to be able to buy another battle pass, it's a comment somebody else was making. I totally like that. And the reason I like that is because engagement is what drives retention, and retention is what drives revenue. And revenue is at its maximum when we think of it like compound interest.
Talking
Retaining,
about
converting players really matters. Anyway, yeah,
talking about missing out and then having it gone and never coming back, one of
yeah,
the elements to address this also and further monetize is something that Merge Mansion does, in
yeah,
that they once a year at Christmas will host a Christmas shop with all the past Christmas battle pass
yeah.
rewards that if you did not get them in past years, you can buy them in future years. But then, what is the player pushing for if they are going to be able to get it later? So you've got the balance there and the use there in regards to
And
it.
Subway Surfers does that bit by making you go back to different cities. So Rome being the first city they went to, later that you went back to Rome, you could get the assets. But what I think was interesting about what they did there is they would make it so there were additional assets that hadn't previously been there. I'm also a fan of the Magic the Gathering model for that. Magic the Gathering, when they first launched, I think had black borders. No, white borders first, and then later was black border. I can't remember which way around it was. I had an original deck once upon a time, a long time ago. Point being, just the change of the border meant that those who knew you didn't, get the first set, and that
Yeah.
mattered. Yeah,
But part of that was the changeover of the deck to push
yep,
players to continue buying new every single season as it
continually.
came out. I started fourth gen, so you know
I
I
I
had
bought the
to.
third pack on sale in the UK ever. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I know I'm old.
Talk about old guard. Let's jump ahead because we've only got a little bit more time, and we've got the entire section left of the monetization and the numbers behind it. So if we can jump forward 2 slides, revenue and engagement impact, and going into the numbers behind it. We're looking at numbers right here with what Brawl Stars is doing, where they're launching these battle passes, and you're starting to see spikes that are happening,
Yep.
which to me, when I look at this, I actually think Eastern monetization, which utilizes the same type of where you have something that's going to push players. The question this is very different than how we're seeing in a lot of Western games, and how games, have a much higher baseline, comparatively speaking. It's, but so is this considered successful, and is this retentive overall in regards to players, or is it better to have a consistent lower level of battle baseline of monetization over time? Go ahead.
Really depend on the economic structure. Like I cannot say if it's a good or bad because each game has a different method of monetization and how they see it. So to say good or bad, it's really hard to make this decision. But I do like the creation of peaks in the game because usually you keep on certain trend and then you give a boost of excitement to the chase. Like out of nowhere, usually it can be a new meta item that released into the game or a new source of energy that brings a satisfaction to the players, a new way to chase after something super excited. So we can see it also in the number. When we provide a good story with a good value proposition, with very clear way how to progress and how to obtain this energy, we can create a lot of peaks into the game. And we know one of the biggest topic that certainly in Politica, but in general, we can see the momentum features that really skip into the feature. It's popping out for several hours or day or really limited time with a limited source, and we can create those peaks in the game. Personally, I do like something that is more stable and from time to time to create the peak in order to keep the player motivated and also on top of it to boost a new storytelling for the player. This is the reason why the player need to come back tomorrow and the day after because every day we providing outstanding story that it's worth to come back for it. And you know that the position that you got and the value and the self-satisfaction from it, which is the most important one because we are in the entertainment market and we want to provide this. We do speak and also relief. Players need a relief, like we're doing in gameplay activities. Sometimes we ask from the player to put a lot of effort or something, but we want also to provide him the relief between of it in order to create something that is much more volatile. So it's really exciting to see those numbers. And this is how I see it from my point of view, but I still don't know to answer if it's good or bad.
Well, just on
When
that
you're
personally, I'm just thinking if I saw those numbers fresh, first thing I would say is I don't have enough time span to really call a judgment on that because I can't see seasonality. And it's interesting how there were 2 week cycles and 1 week cycle. So I'd have to know a little bit more about what it was they were doing. But it does seem like more volatility than I would like to see in general.
I agree. I
it,
like it more stable. I like it to be less volatile. I do like to see peaks. Don't I do like to see the peaks in the revenue,
The
but
peaks are necessary. Peaks are inevitable. You're not grabbing people's attention if you don't have some peaks. However, there are questions I would ask.
it's the core thing about grabbing players' attention, making them spend, making them want to buy those particular things comes into, as you were talking about earlier, the player perceived value in regards to, is this worth it to me? And if it's worth it to you every single time, does that mean that something else is then less worth it to you?
But the
And
revenue
you've
number doesn't tell me that. I need a combination of revenue and daily engagement.
yeah. In particular here, and what happened with the Brawl Stars, where you've got the $24 pass with a 200% return on investment, and versus the $6 or the $7 pass, we're looking at a significantly higher investment. It's how does that balance out over time for players? How does it work out?
I think it's working out for the player because our discussion now is super interesting and we dive into the details, but we're talking about something very narrow, just about the battle pass. But we need to remember that each battle pass contains inside a lot of reward that progress the player in so many places in the ecosystem of the game. So I think it really makes sense that when the player get a huge value, it's not only the primary currency, it's also if it's an album or if it's a quest or if it's any other progression or collection that the player have to build or sculpture or manufacture. Each game has its own mechanics. But we need to remember that the battle pass nourishing the ecosystem in the game, like the prizes inside. This is why I think when the player get a huge ROI for his investment to the game, he getting a lot of other places progression because the game is a huge ecosystem that is like the butterfly effect. You are progressing here, but you're getting so much more and you have so much to obtain and progress and enjoy. And this is part of it. And this is why I think we're seeing those results. And this is why we're still involving and each time bringing a new innovation into the battle passes. And we heading for a huge future with a lot of new things that are going to happen in the battle passes. And I know that we are planning to do so much about it, but I think we can keep it for later. But how do you?
Go ahead, Oscar.
Oh, I'd just say I'm always suspicious of doing dollar value equivalents in these things. I mean, Claire makes the point that not every player does the math, and that's true. But also, as Brett says, it is amazing how insightful some of the people are, and they really do know what they're, that they'll know the DPS as much as they'll know the dollar value of it. For me, it's about the perceived value of the experience overall, and fine. But of course, we end up using proxies like dollar equivalent because it's the easiest thing that we can do the maths for. I just feel the biggest difference for me in this graph is looking at the bands between the free and the pro pass in terms of things that have attracted people's attention. So the pro pass coins, if I'm looking at that correct, or is it gems? I can't tell which. Say gems, is it the yellow band? There's two yellows, one gold, one yellow. I'm going to say gems is the yellow band, but anyway, whatever that yellow band is, that's clearly got way more attention with the pro pass than its proportionate element on the left-hand side. Probably wasn't even included in there, but I would like to know how much the free players were spending on those gems, if at all. And it might be that the fact that they've now got that as part of the Pro Pass has unlocked a new way of playing the game, which could potentially grow the range of options that they then consider as being normal gameplay.
One other thing I'd consider adding into this is, that we're talking about the PvP Pro
Mm,
Pass, putting it at $24 for the
mm,
more hardcore players versus the
yeah,
$6.99, which might be the more casual term players. But on one side, that PvP pass is lasting for 4 months, whereas the $6.99 is every single month. So you've got that balance. It equals out in regards to the value of it. Or I'm sorry, in regards to the price of it. But on the opposite side, the value of it is significantly higher to buy the lower tier one. So is this being
yeah.
used to push players to make the purchases, the low level purchases that they wouldn't?
We're going to get into dummy pricing now, aren't we? We're going to do the economists web versus web plus digital plus. Yeah, and if anyone's interested, I think was it Predictably Irrational. Anyway, one of those books covers that kind of subject. Dummy pricing, at least value setting pricing, is important, and the idea of setting a 20. So we often underestimate pricing is one of the four P's. Pricing is a skill in its own right, completely undervalued, and we should be paying way, way, way more attention to it. The idea of setting 24.99 is not a price in itself. It is a expectation of value. It's a proposition being made that's to that exclusive audience, which is why setting it at such a high level is such a commanding statement, and it's a very interesting. And the fact that they're delivering 200% ROI on that is interesting. I don't know if that's enough, but it feels to me like that's a very smart pricing strategy.
So we are very close to the end. So I'm going to wrap this up with my favorite question that I always like to ask at the end. And that is, where do you see this going? We started at Dota. We've gone into triple layer. We've had, you know, doors and magic items and, random gotcha elements added in, along the way and all the different iterations that are happening. What do you envision is the future of this and where it goes from here?
I
Ohad, you
can
want to start?
Yeah, I want to start because it's really exciting because we're working on the future for in the recent months and we can't wait to release. It's still not ready, but it's work on progress. And I know it's a buzzword in every place when we're talking about AI tools and incorporate them into the battle passes. I think that personalization, even before AI is one of the tools that help us to give a personalized experience. I think in the future, when we can build huge battle passes that are tailor-made for your motivations, for your items that you want, for your needs, you can purchase the battle pass that it can be dedicated for you, for your motivation, for your pricing points. This is the additional topic that, as Oscar mentioned, is crucial. Pricing is an art by itself. So when we're talking a new ability, when a human brain cannot think about each player, we're going to incorporate, we already did, but we're going to even extend it more, and we're going to release huge innovation in the AI field, which will provide the value proposition, the right duration, the right motivation, the right currencies, and the right progression in order to still give you the sense of progression, which is still give you a bit of challenge, give you the thrill of the hunt after the huge chase for the next reward. And this way we can provide you a tailor-made experience which elevates gameplay activity. And I think the ultimate place is to create in any source an attraction for the player. Player doesn't need to play; he wants to play, and we want to purchase. He want to play. We don't need to force him. And I think when the I2 is going to be incorporated and going to give the players the ultimate experience, we will see ourselves in a different zone with different times and different prices. And as I mentioned, the most experience, the best experience we can provide for our players.
Okay. Oscar?
And I'd build on that. So I think that having these personalized experiences is fantastic, but it comes at a risk. And one of the risks is a sense of trust. And as Claire highlighted, you're right, Claire. I don't remember, but the dynamic prices. So different pricing for the same thing, I believe, is not allowed by the App Store, but someone might correct me on that. And it is possible, but the risk of doing it, I don't think is worth the potential damage that it can cause. But we're not necessarily talking about different prices for the same thing. We're talking about creating personalized experiences that feel meaningful, and that sense of feeling meaningful. But we are in the uncanny valley era of AI. We aren't yet at the point where we can trust that the smarts of the processes will get it quite right. Now, I don't doubt we'll get close to that, but I think at the end of the day, what's more interesting for me is the human story of why we come back every day, every week, every month. To me, the power of a battle pass is in activating people to want to come back. And the real power is going to come, I don't think, from personalization directly, although that will be a factor. Again, this is my opinion. I don't know I'm right. My personal belief is it's going to come from telling stories. It's going to come from you wanting to find out that the yellow team who won last month's overarching goal, that you're part of the red faction, you're going to try and come in and beat them in the next series of battle pass through the series of missions and actions and tasks that you're going to do as part of that red team. And as a result, that you'll feel ownership over the story of the world you're playing in. And I'm using a kind of like fantasy arc style language, but that same concept can apply in every genre. At the end of the day, what makes people play is the personal story they tell themselves and the sense of autonomy and expression that they bring to the experience. And our job is to make that delightful and to provide them with value that they want to spend money on. And there are two types of money that comes out of that. There's the ongoing retained revenue from the subscriptions level, and then there's the IAP part of that. Now, there's also ads, but we'll get into that for now. The bottom line is create things that create joy and create reasons for people to invest in that joy. And that's what we're about.
Incredibly,
So,
I totally agree with you. And you mentioned it before, and I think it's also related. Back to basic, we have the core motivation of human beings, and we have very initiative and initial needs that need to be delivered. And I really am happy that you mentioned it because it's super insightful. And also for us, when we all the time talk about innovation and what's going to be the next step, wait, back to basic. There is core motivation for the player, and this is what we need to provide. So thank you for that.
so with that, we have reached the witching hour. We're wrapping up for today, tonight, this afternoon, this evening, whatever time zone you're in. Thank you very much, Oscar and Ohad, for joining us today. Thank you so much, Brett, for hosting this. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you very much for discussing my happy topic.